Hello and welcome, you cozy couch potatoes.
Hello, my cozy couch potatoes. This is Spice Rack Studios, the cozy couch, and we are continuing with the People of Sparks. We are on chapter 23. Chapter 22, we met back up with Lena, Maddie, and Casper. Maddie and Lena left Casper with the truck at the city because he was going a little cuckoo. And they took the bikes, rode for a day or so, and then ran into another roamer where they learned the song and Lena put together, just like I did. She was pretty sure the treasure that they were talking about in the songs was actually Ember and the people. So that was pretty exciting, but then we ended that video with the town meeting and the leaders deciding that they're going to kick the Emberites out of their town. So that's where we're starting with chapter 23. They're about to announce it. So let's dive in. Chapter 23, Getting Ready for War. The stress I feel in that. All right. The announcement shocked the people of Ember. That evening they swarmed through the halls of the Pioneer Hotel in an uproar. People wept and shouted and moaned. In the lobby, Doon encountered a group of people embroiled in a huge argument. Aw, it's the fault of that Hassler boy, shouted someone. He was the one who started the riot. He was egging people on. Oh wait, the Hassler boy. Is that Doon? Doon Hassler? Or is it? Yeah, I think that's Doon. Okay. He was the one who started the riot. He was egging people on. No, he stood up for us. He gave them what they deserved, cried someone else. He's a troublemaker. He's a hero. Doon started up the stairs. Halfway up, he passed Lizzie. Her face was flushed with excitement. She grabbed his arm. He won't let them kick us out, she said. Will he? Will who? Said Doon. Tick. I'm sure he'll save us. He's so brave, isn't he? He'll make them change their minds. She hurried on down the stairs. It was many hours before people went to sleep that night. The noise in the hallways went on and on, as some people wailed that they were all going to die, and others vowed to fight, and others gathered up their belongings and stuffed them into sacks. Sage was so frightened by what was happening that he curled up in the corner with his blanket over his head, but Doon and his father and Edward Pocket sat talking for a long time. I don't see how we can make a town from nothing out in the empty lands, said Doon. I don't believe they ever thought we could. We'd starve trying to do it. We can't go. They can't make us. His father, who sat leaning against the wall with his knees up, shook his head sadly. I don't know, he said. This weapon they have. They could use that to force us out. But what could it be? Doon said. Just one weapon? I don't understand it. To be effective, said Edward Pocket in his most learned tone, a weapon must come into contact with the person or persons it is used against. The question is, how can one weapon be effective against 400 people? My guess is that it's something very large that could be made to fall on us and crush us. But where could they hide it? If it's that large, asked Doon, it would have to be as big as a mountain. It could be an animal, said Doon's father. They might have it in a cage in the basement of the town hall, something very fierce that they would let loose on us. Or it might be something like the poison oak, only worse, said Doon, some sort of poison that they could spray at us. His father nodded thoughtfully. Yes, he said, that could be it. But father, said Doon, we have to fight them, don't you think? No matter what the weapon is, we can't just leave. It's so unfair. Edward Pocket, who had been sitting cross-legged on the floor, scrambled to his feet. He clenched both fists and raised them as if ready to pound someone. I'm not leaving, he shouted. Let them try and make me. I'll chain my leg to their big old tree. From under his blanket, Sage moaned. Besides, Edward went on, I have work to do here. They need me. They need all of us. He sat down again. Probably tomorrow they'll change their minds. I don't think so, said Doon's father. That Ben sounded serious to me. So what do we do then, father? Asked Doon. We fight, don't we? Doon's father sighed. He stretched his long legs out in front of him and stared down at his knees. Think about what it would mean to fight, he said. Say we barricade ourselves here in the hotel and refuse to leave. They come at us with their weapon, whatever it is. Some of us are hurt, some die. We go out to meet them with whatever weapons we can find, sticks maybe, or pieces of broken glass. We battle each other. He ran his hands across his head and sighed again. Maybe they set fire to the hotel. Maybe they set fire to the hotel. Maybe we march into the village and steal food from them, and they come after us and beat us. We beat them back. In the end, maybe we damage them so badly that they're too weak to make us leave. What do we have? Friends and neighbors and families dead, a place half destroyed, and those left in it full of hatred for us. And we ourselves will have to live with the memory of the terrible things we have done. Doon's dad is so wise. Doon pictured all this as his father spoke. He hadn't really imagined before what fighting would be like. But still, he said, at least some of us would survive and have a place to live. If we go out into the empty lands, we'll all die. His father just shook his head. I don't know, Doon. I have to admit, I just don't know what we should do. I know what I'm going to do, said Edward Pocket. What? Asked Doon. Go to bed, said Edward. He stamped over to his closet and crawled in. Wake me up, he said, when you've got all this figured out. An hour or so later, the noise of marching sounded in the hallway, and the thump-thump of knocks on the doors, one after the other. Dick's voice rang out. Calling all fighters, he shouted, all fighters, all those who refuse to be banished. Meet at the head of the road. We must make our plan. The footsteps passed, and Doon heard the same message repeated farther down the hall, and again farther yet. He put his clothes and shoes back on. In spite of what his father had said, he still didn't think the people of Ember should agree to go quietly out into the wilderness. Somehow they must resist, and Tick was the only one with a plan. The hall was full of people, a few of them murmuring quietly to each other, most of them silent. All were heading for the stairs. Outside, the night was warm, but a restless wind stirred in the trees, and scraps of cloud flew across the stars. With the others, Doon headed for the meeting place. Tick stood in a patch of moonlight, the dense shrubbery behind him. When people had gathered around, he held up his rod, and all whispering died away. Listen carefully, Tick said. He spoke in a level voice, not loudly, but every word was sharp and clear. The day we've been ordered to leave, the day after tomorrow, we will assemble at dawn at the front of the hotel. Have your weapons with you. There are still many people who haven't made up their minds to fight, and a few who are ready to go meekly into the empty lands following orders. We want to change their minds. Flash your weapons. Shout our battle cry. We will not go. Remind them of the black words of hatred scrawled in mud on the plaza and on the walls of our hotel, and the poison leaves on the doorstep. We will make those cowards ashamed of their weakness. We will make them understand that obedience to evil commands is a disgrace. Most of them, maybe all of them, will join us. And once they have, we will march into the village, loud and defiant and strong, and in the plaza, we will confront the town leaders and make our demands. A few people raised their fists and shouted approval. What are our demands? Doon asked. He was standing at the front of the crowd, just a few feet from Tick. They are these, said Tick. We demand to be made full citizens of this town, not cast out into the wilderness. We demand to be properly fed. We demand decent places to stay. We demand the end to unfair rules and insults. These seemed reasonable things to ask for, Doon thought, and if they refused to agree to our demands, he asked, then of course we fight. But they have this terrible weapon they talk about, said Doon. What about that? Others echoed his questions. Yes, what about it? Tick smiled. His teeth showed white in the moonlight. They have one weapon, he said. We have many, and each weapon in the right hands is an engine of power. His voice grew louder. We will attack them, he cried. Like this. He raised his steel rod and brought it slashing down so that the air whistled around it. The end cut into the ground. He raised it again and whipped it back and forth, striking tree trunks so hard he gashed their bark. He whirled around and battered the bushes behind him. You cannot defeat us, he cried to an imaginary enemy. Right is on our side. We will have your blood. We will break your bones. He went into a frenzy, stabbing and slicing, thrashing wildly among the bushes. Leaves flew, twigs snapped. Sounds scary to watch. Something fluttered and fell. Doon saw it. So did Tick. He stopped for a moment and glanced down. At his feet was a half-grown baby bird that must have been huddled deep within the bushes. It flopped onto its side, its beak gaping. You see, Tick cried. The enemy falls at my feet. He raised his rod. With one blow, He was going to kill the baby bird. Doon stepped forward and grabbed Tick's arm. Don't, he said. Tick tried to pull away. Then he relaxed and lowered his weapon. He grinned. Okay, he said. I think it's dead anyhow. He stuck the toe of his shoe beneath the bird and flipped it away into the grass. But you get the idea, he said, turning back to his warriors. Imagine hundreds of us doing that. We'll be unbeatable. His face was alight with glee, and that was when Doon's vague, uneasy feelings came together into one clear understanding. Tick wants war. The thought of war excites him and makes him happy, but not me. The thought of war makes me sick. Doon's way parted from Tick's that night. He walked back to the hotel and up the stairs slowly, his heart heavy. He still didn't know what he was going to do the day after tomorrow. All he knew was that he did not want Tick for his commander. He would command himself. Doon, I'm so glad that you see Tick is a little crazy. I'm so glad that he is parting from Tick and going to do his own thing and doesn't want to fight. That is it for chapter 23, My Cozy Couch Potatoes. Next is part 3, The Decision. I'm very excited to continue this. I hope you enjoyed that chapter as much as I did, and I will see you next time. If you like my content, please share with your friends or whoever else likes reading or listening to reading. You don't have to obviously watch me read. You can just listen if that's your thing. All right, my Cozy Couch Potatoes. I will see you next time. Have a good one.